Hi there, and welcome to our third installment of the Unification of Germany presentations. These are notes 11.3c, and this is, of course, Mr. Marx. Where we last left off, Wilhelm I had been crowned in the Palace of Versailles itself. He becomes Emperor of Germany, but the term used for emperor in Germany at that time was Kaiser. This is a form of the word Caesar. Thus, again, showing that this is an empire, something the way Rome had built it. In fact, this was considered to be a successor to the original Holy Roman Empire. In fact, with the help of Otto von Bismarck, Wilhelm I, as Kaiser, makes it so that he is Kaiser of what is called a Reich. Now, in the history of the world, as far as this point in history, when I'm talking to you right now, there have been three Reichs in history. Reich is basically the German term for empire. The first is the Holy Roman Empire, which was set up, for the majority of the Middle Ages. The Second Reich is this Reich which is created by Bismarck and that Wilhelm II is chancellor of. You can see that it takes a lot of those German states and is starting to unify them into something much closer to what we currently think of as Germany today. You can notice on this map also Prussia is divided into West Prussia and East Prussia as different districts at the time, there in 1871, but that's where Prussia used to be. Remember, Prussia is different than Russia. Russia is a larger country that's further to the east there. Prussia is a German-speaking country which no longer exists. So, First Reich, Holy Roman Empire. Second Reich, the Reich under Kaiser Wilhelm II. The Third Reich. Haven't you heard something about that before? Yeah, it sounds kind of evil. That's right. The Third Reich is going to be ruled by the Nazis. Hitler is going to declare that his empire, which he will establish, will be the third and, in his mind, the final German empire. Now, back to the Second Reich. Wilhelm is making has a good deal of power, and he's making a lot of changes, but Bismarck is the one who's really behind everything. And one of the things that he does is to modernize his nation. In order to make it so it can enter the industrial age, if you remember, one of the components that made it so Great Britain was a leader in the industrial age was a stable government. Bismarck wanted to do the same thing with Germany. Now that he had unified it, he wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to fall apart again. So he creates a two-house legislature, much like our Senate and House of Representatives. The Senate equivalent is the Bundesrat. The Bundesrat is made up of people who are chosen only by people who are already serving in government. This is not a direct election the way that we directly elect senators. In fact, in order to sit on the Bundesrat, the representatives have to be approved by the chancellor, which gives Bismarck, as chancellor, tremendous power. And since Wilhelm has gets to choose who's the chancellor, it gives Wilhelm a great deal of power. Meanwhile, the Reichstag is an elected house filled with representatives who are elected directly from the people. Now, this is a name to remember, the Reichstag, because this is where Hitler is almost 100 years later. Well, not quite, 60-some. This is where Hitler is going to gain his power and influence. He's not going to be elected through the Bundesrat. He's going to get his power directly from the people, and so and will eventually become the head of the Reichstag. Just future notes. Now, Bismarck did this, as I said, in order to modernize Germany. They had really similar resources to Great Britain. They had a lot of people. Now that they were all now that they were all unified, a lot of the people were moving into the cities. They had started their second agricultural revolution. He was pushing for the use of enclosures, just like the British had done. He's got plenty of iron, actually more iron than what Britain had access to. He's got lots of coal, and because things are going pretty well underneath him, there is a population boom going on through Germany through the advancements in medicine and other technologies. They were also developing new synthetic chemicals and dyes, other sorts of things that would set the German industry apart from other places. So it seems like Otto von Bismarck is unstoppable. It's why he's referred to as the Iron Chancellor. He's bringing Germany into this industrial age, and he seems to be an unstoppable force. But he makes a couple of errors. One of his biggest errors is called the Kulturkampf. He's trying to completely change all of the culture. This literally means struggle over culture, or the power of culture. The Catholic Church still had a good deal of sway in Germany, as most Germans were Roman Catholics. And Otto von Bismarck wanted to make sure that their loyalty was always to Germany first. So he started a program which was designed to discredit the church and to make Catholics want to put their loyalties to Germany above all else. You don't mess with people's religions. It's one of the key rules of politics. And the public backlash of this is immense. If it wasn't for Otto von Bismarck's realpolitik, his ability to, well, basically lie himself out of any situation, he probably would not have been able to recover from this. Instead, he kind of plays this off as being a sort of test of the Germans' will and their resolve towards the church. He actually reverses it and's willing to bind the church even closer to the German state. Now, had he been an idealist, had he been focusing only on an ideology and not willing to do anything that he could in order to stay in power, he quite possibly would have been ousted out of power at that time. During this time, he starts regulating the currency, he reorganizes the banks, and people are starting to feel really good about him. He's created a magnificent railroad system. Germany's railroad system that he begins the design of at that time is still considered to be one of the best organized railroad systems in the world today. Then he screws up again. He's concerned about the power of the Reichstag, and especially the powers of unions, that their demands for the rights of workers might end up going counter to what he feels is the good of Germany. And so he starts trying to take power away from them. Again, a big mistake. Once people have been given power, taking it away from them usually has a cultural backlash, and this is again the case here. But this is going to be a bigger mistake for him. He's going to be able to realign himself with the members of the unions, but he's not. He's going to make a fatal mistake with the new Kaiser. You see, Wilhelm I will die about 17 years after he became Kaiser of the German Empire. He dies in Berlin on March 9th of 1888, and his son becomes the new emperor. That's Frederick III. I know this says Kaiser Wilhelm II, but you have to bear with me. Frederick III was already suffering from an incurable throat cancer, and for the 99 days that he was Kaiser, he was pretty much bedridden and just dealing with his illness. So on June 15th of that same year, 1888, he dies, and his son, thus Wilhelm I's grandson, becomes Kaiser Wilhelm II. He's only 29 years old, and Bismarck, a much older man at this time, thinks of him as being a lightweight, someone who could be easily dominated. And Unfortunately, Bismarck was right. What he forgot was that other people would appeal to Wilhelm II's sense of vanity. And while Bismarck thought he could just boss this young Kaiser around to do what was best for Germany, other people kind of whispered into the back of behind Otto von Bismarck's back and whispered into Wilhelm II's ear, and they wanted to take power away from this chancellor who looked like he could never be toppled. Bismarck's biggest mistake was trying a series of policies to go against the socialists. He starts an anti-socialist law in 1890, and Wilhelm II fires him over this. Bismarck will still try to stay in the background, but he will lose almost all of his political power. And I can't help but think how the world may have been different if Bismarck had been able to stay in power leading up to the events that led to World War I. You see, Wilhelm II becomes obsessed with the power of Germany, but he doesn't have that realpolitik. He's not willing to give up on stuff that doesn't fit with the rest of the world. Wilhelm II wants to colonize. He sees all of the other countries doing it, and he's influenced by those whisperers into his ear that's the only way to show Germany's true strength is to start taking over the world. So he takes large steps in order to take large sections of Africa. If you remember, it's right around this time that they're going to have that conference of Berlin that's going to divide up Africa. He will make a fatal mistake in this because it'll be Germans' lust for colonies, and it'll be the conflicts between Germany and other nations over those colonies, as well as the tangled alliances that the Kaiser will create in order to balance everything, that will end up leading to World War I. Bismarck had been able to balance all of these different players against one another. Wilhelm II, he's not as capable of doing that. So, in review, what German political titles and agencies were created under Bismarck? So, what were what's the German form of emperor? All right. What Reichs have existed throughout history? Okay. And then, in what political areas did Bismarck end up failing? It might not be a bad idea to think about where he succeeded, but you definitely need to know where he failed.